Couple By in LA, we also give you immigration update because ignorance of the law is not an excuse.
This American Dream segment is brought to you by Aquino & Lowe Law Firm, answering your immigration questions.
Attorney Richard Lowe, long time no see.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Hello and welcome to Couple By in LA.
Thank you.
What are we going to talk about today?
Well, today we're going to talk about asylum, and it's really a cautionary tale.
Yes, when we talk about asylum, I don't hear that very often being discussed along with immigration, especially in our community.
Yes, in the Filipino community, it really isn't something that most Filipinos would qualify for, and that's particularly because the Philippines is a very stable, democratic country in which we don't see widespread persecution by the government. So this is not something that is generally done in the Filipino community.
But you're saying, we were talking about that earlier, you do have encountered clients who are now in removal proceedings because they applied for asylum. So you're saying that it might even hurt you more than it might help? Yeah,
what looks like perhaps an easy way to get a work permit ends up turning into removal proceedings, because that is the only way it can end up. You can either get approved or you're going to be removed. There's just no in between.
Right. What are the requirements, just so we know?
Well, basically, asylum is for somebody who is outside of their country, who is unwilling or unable to return because they fear persecution on account of either their race, their religion, their political opinion, social group, and one of those 5 enumerated factors.
When would you advise asylum as a resort to any of your clients that go to you for immigration?
Well, for Filipino clients, I would almost never advise them to file for asylum because it simply is something that is not available. Now, every case is individual, so you have to talk to the particulars of that person. And if that person has suffered in some way for governmental persecution, then I might consider it, but it's very rare. I have yet to meet what I believe is a Filipino client who will actually be granted asylum.
Let's say some people are watching and maybe they find themselves, qualified for this, perhaps. What is the process?
Well, the process is that basically there's 2 kinds of asylum applications. There's one that's called the affirmative application, and there's one that's defensive. The affirmative application is you would submit an application to the Citizenship and Immigration Services, who would then adjudicate that through an interview. And the process goes fairly quickly. From application to interview is 45 days. They're required to have an interview, and interview to decision is about 10 days. So you move pretty quickly, and after the 10 days, if you're not approved, you end up in removal proceedings.
What about documentation? What are the documents needed? You have to prove that there's legitimate, threat to your life, perhaps, or...
Documentation is one of the most crucial aspects in an asylum case, and generally tends to be the place where people are going to trip up, because even though you can say that, I was threatened by this person, or this thing happened to me, it's difficult to get documentation. Documentation that the courts want to see is that you have police reports, that you have some perhaps newspaper accounts of the incidences, that you have also widespread coverage of these types of incidences throughout the country, so that it's just not this particular time and place, but it's all the other things that are happening as well throughout the country.
So collecting evidences. Now, if you are granted an asylum, what does that mean for your immigration? Do you get a green card right away? Do you get work permit? What do you get?
Well, if a person is granted asylum, and I've had many asylum grants through other countries, for example, Afghanistan or through China, then you become an asylee for 1 year. And after 1 year, you can apply for your green card.
And if you're not, like you said, and you've been emphasizing that since earlier, you can find yourself you will definitely find yourself in removal proceedings. And what happens after that?
Yeah.
Can you still intervene? Can a lawyer still intervene?
Yeah, unfortunately, what happens is people go to a service or a notario or somebody that says, oh, yeah, you can get a work permit. All you need to do is file this and that. And maybe they'll get a work permit. Most likely they won't, but they will end up in proceedings. And what happens then is that in proceedings, the judge is going to determine whether or not you're removable, and 9 times out of 10 you are removable because you've overstayed or you've entered in a manner which is not legal. And so then if you have no other relief, which is probably none, since that's why you were filing an asylum case to begin with, then you're going to be removed. But more importantly, if you continue with the application in front of a judge, which I have found some clients have done so, and that application contains misrepresentations, let's say, that you are sort of falsifying information or your story.
Or fabricating, exaggerating.
That is what's known as a frivolous application. And a frivolous application is one of the few things that can basically forever bar you from becoming a permanent resident in the United States. So it's very important that you seek professional counsel before you begin down this road.
Yes, and we don't want that. We don't want to be barred for life, right?
For life.
That's the phone number on the screen. Aquino and Lowe Law Firm, they do phone consultation, face-to-face consultation, they do email consultation, and it's not like your other law offices where you get to only talk to a paralegal. You could actually get to talk to them, Attorney Richard Lowe and, of course, Attorney Allison Aquino of Aquino and Lowe. Thank you, and more power to you.
Thank you.
We'll be back more in Kababayan, LA. Don't go away.